Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. We're thrilled to be coming to you live from the heart of Atlanta at Modex 2024, right here at the Georgia World Congress Center. A shout out to our sponsor, G&P Construction, your go-to provider for comprehensive turnkey material handling and solutions in both logistics and commercial needs. We are truly grateful for the support.
It's all about supporting universal inventory flow through a facility. Because to the supply chain, every distribution site, whether it's manufacturing or a warehouse, you are a node and your sole purpose is to take inventory in and ship inventory out. Yep. Draw a big circle around it, everything in and everything out. The rest of the supply chain decides. What optimization should decide is exactly what processes do you need to do inside of that circle to make sure that you're supporting that overall flow.
Welcome, eCom Logistics Podcast world. We are excited to be here once again at Modex with our special guest, Keith Moore of AutoScheduler. We actually met Keith a few weeks ago back in sunny Florida at the BGSA conference, where he had a really unique experience where he was on their version of the Shark Tank. And not only was he a contestant, he was a big winner. So Keith, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Keith, here's how about we kick it off with this? Other than yourself, all the other folks that were on that stage at BGSA, which one would you rank as number two? Because I'm pretty sure you would rank yourself number one because you also won the competition, by the way. Both the judges' choice as well as the
audience
votes.
The people's choice.
Exactly, the People's Choice Award. So congratulations. That definitely shows you got something going really well. So
sure. So I'll try to keep it fairly brief. I grew up in supply chain. So my dad has been a supply chain consultant my whole life, right? You talk about going on vacations to Inland Empire. So you can go to warehouses, right? That was me growing up, walking warehouses, learning about transportation. And I was like, I'm never going to work in supply chain. That was my commitment to me. So I went and got an engineering degree, went and worked for a company called National Instruments out of Austin, Texas. So I'm currently based in Austin. And what I was doing is I was managing, I became so engineer first, became a product manager. And on the product side, I was giving people the ability to collect huge amounts of data. So I was working with companies like SpaceX on their hardware in the loop testing systems, for example, for their self-landing rockets, working with Intel and Qualcomm on how to get more battery life out of cell phones. And you're collecting gigabytes of data every few seconds. Wow. I realized nobody knew what they were doing with it. And I was like, man, this is like 2013, 14. There's got to be a technology out there to help people better use data. And so stumbled onto machine learning. So go to National Instruments, billion-dollar company. I'm like, hey, we need to invest in this. So like, yeah, we're probably not going to do that. We're going to listen to some 25-year-old kid who thinks it's a good idea. So I went and helped start a company in Austin called Spark Cognition, and technically not a founder. I was one of the first employees there. Okay. Did the whole Silicon Valley thing. If you've ever seen the show Silicon Valley, that was my life for a while. It was like, on a Wednesday, our CEO would be like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, working. He's like, all right, well, now you're giving a speech in London. I'm like, I have to get to London tomorrow? Okay. And so we did pure play machine learning. So built solutions in FinServe, built solutions, oil and gas. So built a lot of products, have done a lot of deliveries, primarily with artificial intelligence into domain specific areas. One of the challenges I ran into doing that, though, is when you do everything for everybody, which is what you do when you're a highly funded company,
right?
Is you end up specializing in nothing. And as a product person, I like being really good at one thing, right? You want that copy paste repeatable business model. And what I found was the last company was becoming a sexier version of Deloitte. And I wanted to be very vertical. It was about at that time, some of the folks that built the initial version of AutoScheduler for Procter & Gamble reached out. They said, hey, we have this thing called AutoScheduler. Any interest in turning that into a company? So we focus primarily on distribution, orchestration, and optimization. We launched the business in 2020, in August of 2020, and it's been off to the races since then.
Wow. That's 2020. So it's pretty closing in on 4 years at this point.
Yeah, and still bootstrapped.
Yeah, still bootstrapped. No funds at this point. Yeah.
We hit profitability last year.
And I mean, maybe if we can talk about a little bit more in detail about AutoScheduler, just the value prop, right?
Sure.
Not the selling part, but like where was the gap in the market, like truly that you think it's scalable as a solution, as a product that you can take to the market?
Yeah. And it comes down to like, what is the problem? Why do we exist? How we got started and how the solution was built was P&G doing a study of their facilities. And they saw that they had some really poorly performing sites and some really great performing sites. P&G is always one of the Gartner masters of supply chain. So when they kind of double clicked into the poor performing sites, they found they had high turnover in leadership positions, primarily people in the shipping office in coordinator roles. They call them pilots.
Right.
How do we take all this knowledge of people that are really good at that role and can we make it uniform across the business so everybody knows exactly how to run a DC?
Yeah.
Because what you find at poorly run DCs where you don't have a lot of experience and tribal knowledge in the shipping office is shift 1 feels like they're cleaning up after shift 3. Shift 3
right.
feels like they're cleaning up after shift 2.
Of course, yeah.
There's a lot of churn in the business. There's a lot of inefficiency in how they actually run.
Right.
They commissioned a consulting group to build the first version of AutoScheduler. That then became the global standard at all of their sites, which was, this is how we run our distribution environments. It's uniform. Whether you've been there for 1 day or 30 years, everybody gets the same screen that tells them how they need to operate.
Is it like SOP management? So, or, literally like documenting every step that everyone should be doing along the way with different tasks?
It's a little bit more broad than that. And this is, we're talking about what we're doing with the business is very much so category creation, because you have your WES and your WCS and your WMS and your labor management system, right? We are completely unique to all of those. And that our secret sauce is advanced mathematics and optimization on top of a warehouse management system. So what is the output of that? Is a plan that says, you need to move this trailer to this door at this time, because that is going to be the best door to use based on where the inventory is positioned in the building. You're going to reduce travel by 30%, which is a really common thing that we see at sites where you're doing door optimization and management. But then on top of that, it's, all right, you have 20 forklifts, 10 clamp trucks, and maybe one layer pick device that's specialized for layer pick. You have 24 people available. What equipment do you need to put them on, given that some inventory can only be picked with certain equipment? And when does that need to change? What work should they be doing? What orders should they be working now? What orders are they going to start in 30 minutes? What orders are they starting in an hour and a half? And what are the problems that we're going to run into throughout the horizon of the next 24 to 48 hours of the orders we're aware of? And in CPG, that's like 48 hours. And fulfillment, it's like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Is it just giving the plan, or is it actually helping execute the plan?
Yeah, we do both. And that gets into a level of supply chain maturity. You have certain companies that are more willing to introduce automation. And so generally what we recommend for people is whether it's AutoScheduler or some other internal optimization that they're trying to do, is always start by just having the plan side by side. So every person in the shipping office should have 2 screens, one with their warehouse management system open, one with an AutoScheduler or their solution that says, here's what you need to do. Let's validate. Let's build that comfort level. Because it turns out like technology is easy, software is easy, people are hard. So the change management is generally the biggest challenge anytime you're rolling out a new technology to the warehouse. And so what we recommend is you start by saying, let's get this tool up and running. Let's get your team comfortable with using it and making decisions off of it and trusting the decisions they're making. And when they hit the point where it becomes frustrating to continue to click, you're just talking about RPA at that point, a robotic process automation, which is we'll automate it back into the WMS, automate waiving, automate allocation, automate cuts management of inventory, things that take a lot of time.
So you take in more like in analytics, they go descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, right?
Yep.
Like, so you're essentially saying, let's start descriptive, let's get more predictive, because you're going to, it's like, you should do this. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, you're basically like, once you're comfortable, we are basically saying, you must do this, right? Yes. For you to be able to achieve your plan. I think that's a really cool way of doing it. It makes a lot of sense. But let's get to that prescriptive part, right? Which is like, you got to go do this. I got to assume there is WES, there is WMS. You got to tell all of these systems. Not every system's actually designed to do that. I can clearly see you walk in, let's say I'm the IT guy, right? Like that's overseeing this entire warehouse operation. And you walk in, you show it to operations. Operations is going to be like, amazing. I love it. And you run it on the side because I'm feeding it a bunch of data. And it's like, okay, here's the raw files of all the data. You crunch it, you come back, life is good.
Yep.
It flips into now you go, I want to go prescriptive, which then means you're going to go talk to your IT guy, and your IT guy's first reaction is like, but we use blah, blah, blah WMS and blah, blah, blah WES, right? How do you overcome that, right? Like that's got to be a little challenging, I would assume.
It certainly is. And when we started the business, right, when you're new to the market, even though we had P&G as a flagship customer, which is a great launch customer to work
100%.
with, even then you're still like, hey, somebody please buy my technology. That's your goal as a business.
Yeah.
Right? But you get your bumps and bruises along the way. Warehousing IT has gotten a lot stronger in the past 5 years, but I would still say it is a decade or more behind a lot of other industries.
Oh man, tell me about it.
And so there's a lot of generally what we do in our sales process now, and it's not, this is just general practice for building good sales, is you be super upfront with exactly what needs to happen. Hey, what systems are you running? All right, great. Here's how this integration looks. If you know what that integration looks like, fantastic. If you don't, great guys, we need to figure out what this looks like. You need to actually do all of that change management up front with leaders in the organization, because it's never going to work by the time you get it to the floor if you're figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, do you see that more closer to like WES kind of execution without any of the automation integration, like automation in the sense like physical, MHE, robotics, etc. Like take that out of the equation. Are you then a warehouse execution system?
Not quite.
Okay.
And the only reason I say not quite is, following the Gartner terminology of WMS, WES, WCS, is more often than not, you have your ERP, and I'm starting all the way at the top, right?
All the way up top.
Your ERP, and people are, there's some order management system, people are capturing orders in. If you're running a CPG site, there's then transportation that gets booked. If it's a fulfillment operation, obviously you have your cutoff times with your UPS and FedEx and whatever it may be. But then your transportation gets booked, and the reality is in the warehouse, you don't have any say whatsoever on when that trailer is leaving. It is dropped on you as something that you need to execute against. And so the transaction that then happens is it gets dropped to the warehouse management system. It's a work order by the carrier move, and then the work order, by SAP comes slightly different terminology. Same with Manhattan. And then as that work is waived in that WMS, that is when there are, and this is where all the customizations come into play, is every site has a unique flow and process, right? We all do the same thing, but every site is a snowflake with regards to how it actually operates, both from a physical process flow and technologically. Yeah. And after the WMS waves and basically creates that work, that's where the work is then passed out to a WES, which may say, we are going to pass this to an auto store system 1, which is going to pass it to conveyor system 2. But the WES lives under the WMS from a, what is the central station of technology.
Exactly.
And where we play is above the WMS. So we want to be able to control, given the fact that you might have 17 different pick stations. That's a really large example, but you might have 17 different pick stations that all have different capacities and speed at which you operate. So if you have people manually picking and people picking out of an auto store, you might have 3x on one side versus the other. And so what we want to do is we want to tell you how to wave and release work to each of those systems so that the work, by the time, they're all flowing to the same pack station. Right. So by the time it flows to the pack station, you're not overwhelming the pack station. And you have enough people at the pack station, we'll tell you exactly how many people to man there to support the work that's further upstream, as well as what's further down.
So you're taking time and transit into consideration inside the warehouse as well to say, hey, pack station 1, Jody's going to start working. Jody's performance happens to be 230 picks per hour as an example. Now, based on that, I know how much volume can be released to that station with the amount of time that I have from a lead time perspective in the transit. So you can start doing the pick mod picking or auto store scheduling or whatever else that needs to happen, right?
That's right. It's all about supporting universal inventory flow through a facility. Because to to the supply chain, every distribution site, whether it's manufacturing or a warehouse, you are a node and your sole purpose is to take inventory in and ship inventory out. Yeah. Draw a big circle around it, everything in and everything out. The rest of the supply chain decides. What optimization should decide is exactly what processes do you need to do inside of that circle to make sure that you're supporting that overall flow for the rest.
So then the logic layer applies pretty much everywhere, right? Like you could do the same thing by abstracting a level above from inventory planning, network planning and optimization as well. Like it just seems a level of abstraction that you can do again, you need the data model to support the warehousing, but here's the prescriptive model, but I'm better off now knowing all of these details down to the ground level. I guess am I speaking to your roadmap at this point?
There has to be a way to bridge what planning systems say should happen and what execution systems actually do. And in distribution, it's every second, every minute, every hour in real time. You need to be able to adapt that plan because the timing is shorter. In transportation, it's, days to weeks, right? How many trucks do we need on what days to make sure we support the rest of the flow? But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, from if you were to specialize and continue specialization in this field, there are other players that are playing there. Let them continue playing there because not a lot of players in this particular space doing this type of optimization we spoke about AutoStore, but there might be a lot of cases where there is no automation, but you still need good production planning. We talk about e-commerce, but I can tell you, most of the warehouses, retail, where it's flow-through type environments, you got 3 or 4 production planners that are doing Excel exports in the morning, trying to figure out how to release work, and then monitoring these 15, 30 waves that are running at the same time, right? On a list and saying, okay, how far has it reached and what's happened to it, right? And be able to kind of execute and manage to, hey, supervisor, here's a problem. Wave number 34 for today, you got problems, right? Like, so I'm guessing that's the kind of problem you're solving. So it's not just release the work. Is it also monitoring the work? Well, what happens to that point?
Mm-hmm. It's release the work, monitor the work, change how you view the day. Every plan you create is broken the second you create it because nobody follows a plan perfectly. And so it's calling out, here are the issues you're going to run into in current state, but also, you're going to run into more issues given that you only execute the plan to 85, 90%. When I say 85, 90%, it's you need to pick these orders. Like I was at a large cereal manufacturer and we thought they had 20 people available. And you build the plan, 20 people available. It's perfectly optimized. The site's running really tight because they're shipping for another facility as well that was down for an upgrade. And all of a sudden, your 5-high stack of cereal falls over and there's little round cereals everywhere. And you're like, oh, wow, that's a problem. Like apparently what we thought you were going to get done is very different because the 20 people we thought you had to be working right now, really you only have 7 or 8 because there's 12 to 13 people that are cleaning up cereal from the next 5 aisles over.
Right.
And so it's given those things happen every minute of every day in a distribution environment, they're chaotic by nature. Right. How do you take what happens, alert obviously on when things aren't happening when they need to, but also say, no problem. We're going to help you get where you want to go. It's crayons and spreadsheets is how it happens today. And
sorry, what was that example?
Crayons and spreadsheets, which is whenever work needs to get done, you get out your crayons and your spreadsheets and you figure it out. And you think of another industry, which is transportation and travel, which is, in the 90s, we used maps to get everywhere. And then MapQuest came around and it was, transformative because you'd say where you were and where you wanted to go and it would tell you how to get there, but it was up to you to follow it. And then in mobile compute came around in the late 2000s or, 2010, Google Maps and Waze came around and they were able to tell you not only here's how you need to, here's what you need to do to get where you're going. Here are the problems you're going to run into. Here's how long it's going to take you. But also if you take a wrong turn, it's going to course correct and say, no problem. Either you turn here, turn left here, and it's going to reroute you to get you wherever you need to be. And that's kind of what the world needs is some way to, in a transformative way, plan out distribution operations consistently and continuously.
That makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, from my vantage point, I think accessibility to that level of data Maybe we can talk about a little bit about WMS. Can you rank the flexibility? Because you're highly dependent on that, right? Like if you want real time, because there's one thing to say, give me your plan for today and I'll give you a plan back. But you want to monitor how is it going to plan and providing feedback. I mean, that's another ballgame, which means you need a lot of real-time data coming to you, right?
You need a lot of data. You need good data, right? Data quality is everything. So WMSs there's the top four, obviously. What they make up 80+% of the market with your Manhattans, your Corbers, SAP, and Blue Yonder. They have all the data required to run. These are your tier ones, but they're much less flexible than I think most people think. So anybody who has one of those four systems, you end up spending a lot of time on customization and tweaking it. Can you build an auto-scheduler for your site? Sure. Given time and money, like no doubt, somebody can try to build it for their site. But, inside of a WMS, it's a nightmare because it's a 10-year sales cycle.
Exactly.
I've actually been really impressed though. We partner with all of them. I like all the WMSs. Yeah. They all have their different strengths and weaknesses depending on the industry that you're in. The top four all have enough data to operate generally, but I've been very impressed by some of the smaller WMS providers out there. Like I'll call out Softion and what they're doing. They've done a fantastic job of building out a really good technology that's really flexible.
That makes a lot of sense. And, the other one that I would actually call out, and not, I don't know if you have encountered this already or not, but as we see WMSs move from legacy monolithic architecture to more microservice-oriented cloud-native type of deployments, and I know both Manhattan and Blue Yonder are on that path. SAP,
we'll see.
But as far as Blue Yonder and Manhattan are concerned specifically, Blue Yonder is slightly behind. I think they are on the journey, but Manhattan's definitely taken the leap towards like developing an API ecosystem. And again, this is not APIs to like, here's your orders, here's your shipment back. Right now, we are talking about APIs down to the data level that you can get access to. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a game changer, and applications like yours will truly transform. And that's the hypothesis and the ethos around that, right? Like, let the developer community build stuff around me. I like to call it the Salesforceification of the warehousing distribution space, the workday, right? Like the hey, here's my ecosystem, go play with it, right? Because I can't have all the answers. That's why this industry is so complex. It's massive, right? Like, so I think that's a really good philosophy. And I think you might be on like that early curve of where the industry trajectory is starting to go. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see a lot more adoption as you can come in and say, hey, I got a plugin. I just got a plugin. Oh, you got Manhattan Active? Great. I got plugin. You got Blue Yonder Cloud, blah, blah, whatever they might name it. Great. Let's connect into it, right?
Completely. I'm a big believer in a commitment to openness, right? Any data we have, we should make available because companies are starting to see, and these are your big shippers, you're starting to see data as a value and as a business advantage to the organization. And supply chain produces a massive amount of data. And right now, I mean, you have companies that are running a bunch of 3PLs running different WMSs. Yeah, like they get a daily update on what was shipped, and there's a lot of room for improvement. Starting at how us technology providers start to think about the work.
I agree, man.
Keith, before we wrap it up, any last words you want to share with the audience? I definitely want to give them the opportunity. Where do they go to learn more about AutoScheduler? Where can they follow you on social media? So please provide some final thoughts and where they could go to learn more.
Sure. Final thought, just on kind of the state of the industry and what's happening is what robotics is doing for distribution is absolutely fantastic. I think in the past 4 years with COVID, we saw the first wave of robotics really come into play, which was, oh my gosh, we can't get the labor we need. We need robots. And now a lot of these companies have come in and they said, we had this robotic automation strategy. Now we don't have people to manage the site because we're not fully dark, right?
Yeah, right.
The warehouse of the future is a man and a dog. And what's the man for? To feed the dog. What's the dog for? To make sure the man doesn't touch anything. And we're not there yet. And so until we get there, you have to think about how do you introduce robotics and automation to supplement and enhance your workforce while simultaneously accepting you're making your business processes so much more complex than they've ever been.
True.
And so I think the next round of challenges that people are going to start talking about in the next few years is going to be that, human robotic symbiotic relationships and planning distribution organizations around them. But for us and for AutoScheduler, if anybody wants to check us out, www.AutoScheduler.AI. And I'm on LinkedIn and I'm happy to chat.
I love it. And by the way, I just want to end with AutoScheduler. Great name, because they can go anywhere after this, right? As the business expands. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. As we bring another episode to a close here at Modex, we want to extend our gratitude to GNP Construction for their sponsorship of the podcast. If you're in need of top-notch, all-inclusive material handling solutions for logistics and commercial real estate, look no further than GNP Construction. Be sure to visit GANDPconstruction.com to discover your one-stop shop for turnkey MHE integrations.
Hi, I'm Ninad Acharya, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Coll, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the eCom Logistics podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the eCom Logistics podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the eCom Logistics podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference.